Hey guys, what's going on? This is Brian Murphy from One Time Mountain, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout with Max Bowen.
Rock on.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Max Bowen.
And I'm Curtis Hughes.
Curtis, man, you love a good mystery, right?
I love a good mystery, Max.
Fantastic.
How about yourself?
Fantastic, because I just got this box shipped to my front door. It's full of stuff that I think is actually from a legit murder. So you want to help me solve it?
Out of here.
You want to help me solve it?
It's cold. Yeah, let's go.
All right, cool. I'm sure this will be perfectly fine. I'm sure nothing bad's going to happen to us.
I don't think so.
No.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, to find out, I think we need to read Jill and the Killers. So this is a brand new comic series, folks. It was released first in January. The final issue is coming out April 17th. I'm loving this thing. I'm absolutely loving this series. I may have already read the ending, and I'm not going to tell you what happens. Instead, we are going to be chatting to the series writer, Olivia Cuartero-Briggs. Olivia, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. I cannot wait to talk all about this series.
Welcome.
I cannot wait to talk about it with you guys. And it's so cool because this is the first time I've been able to talk about at least books 1 through 3. So I'm very excited to dive into this with you guys. And by the way, that was like the cutest intro ever. So thank you for the adorableness. I'm sorry for like laughing through it. I was trying to be quiet.
No, we like that.
So sweet.
I like that. All right. So this series first dropped through Oni Press on back in January. Last issue, as of this recording, is about a week or so away. I want to go back to the beginning, though. What inspired this like murder mystery series with a subscription box theme?
Well, this all kind of came about during the pandemic, when kind of everyone and their mother was getting really into subscription boxes, myself included. So that was part of the inspiration. The other part is that I've always been fascinated by true crime, and it's kind of a strange thing to say, like I love true crime, because I don't think anyone actually loves true crime, and that we don't love that it happens. But there is a fascination with the world of the macabre, certainly. And certainly among women my age, we devour this stuff. So, between my love of true crime, and I've always liked writing horror, I really did want to cut my teeth on a horror comedy and combine that somehow with this love of subscription boxes that I was developing. I even ended up starting my own subscription box at one point. But it really was as simple as that, that I was looking at subscription boxes. I saw something called Hunt a Killer, which is a subscription box game. And I just thought to myself, oh gosh, what if you got one of those and it was clues to an actual crime? And usually when ideas come to me that easily, I think they're probably terrible. And so I just kind of sat on it for a while, but it wouldn't go away. And so when I was introduced to the folks over at Oni Press, and they passed me off to an editor, and she and I started shooting ideas. This was like my wild card idea that I thought, oh, they're probably not going to like this one, but I can't get it out of my head, so why don't I toss it at them? And it was the one that they went for, and so that's really where it came from.
I love it. All right, I am going to set the scene for all y'all at home. So this follows Jill Estrada. She is a teenager in high school and has been really following the unsolved disappearance of her mother, who was also a police officer. And at this point, no leads in the case. Most people have actually given up. All she wants, though, is to get back to her regular life. But when she gets back to school, she realizes, as you mentioned, everyone's into true crime stuff. There are true crime podcasts and games and such. So she's like, you know what? I don't want to lose my friends. I'm going to do this. So she orders a box, and it's basically off to the races. So I want to ask you about just like creating the murder itself, like creating the crime that we get to more or less investigate along with Jill. How'd you do that? How'd you like make your own like murder mystery, basically?
That was the most intimidating part about breaking this story, because I had never done that before. I had never written a mystery. I had never created a mystery. The character arcs, crafting characters, telling those interpersonal stories that occur between the girls, that I was familiar with. I've written a lot of soaps, and that's very central, those relationships and the drama. But in terms of the mystery, that was tough. But thankfully, I did have some experience working on a show called Criminal Minds Beyond Borders. And so there I got to see the way that they constructed crimes and how they, went about having the protagonist solve them. And you have to work from back to front. So, you as the writer, first you have to decide who your killer is. Then you have to decide why they're doing it, right? It's for me at least, I know I love Michael Myers, but even he, who's like this like senseless killing machine, at least has some tie to his family, right? He likes to kill his family members for no reason, but we accept at least that kernel of sense. So, your killers, as crazy as they are, there needs to be some reason why they're doing what they're doing. So deciding that and their backstory, and then the really kind of challenging part is to work through how, like, what clues go where, how this group of girls ends up figuring out that this person is the killer. And so that once, like in terms of like the order of operations and coming up with the story, the first thing for me to do was to nail Jill's character. Right. I needed to know her want. I needed to know her fatal flaw and her inner need, the thing that she needs in her soul, whether she's aware of it or not. And once I had that, then I crafted the mystery, again, working back to front. And I have a massive magnetic wall that I have cards that I put on and to map this whole thing out. And once I had that laid in, over top of it, I laid in the beats for the character journeys. And then the trick of it was you don't want to have separate character beats from the investigative beats. The best mystery shows that you watch, those things are happening concurrently. So as the crime or mystery is being solved, the characters are going through what they're going through, and hopefully the steps involved in solving the crime actually move their emotional stories forward. So it's intricate work, and I was very daunted by it at first, but I'll tell you, once I finished it, I was so hoping that this book series took off because I couldn't wait to break the next one.
Oh, I imagine it definitely has. And you point out a very important thing. This is not just a murder mystery. It's also a people story, because as the series goes along, we're introduced to different aspects of the different characters, whether it's Jill's relationship with Ginger or Cher or O'Brien. We're introduced to all these like different characters. We get to see them kind of grow over the course of the series. One thing I was curious about, though, when it came to this particular story arc, was this your first idea?
In terms of the crime itself?
Yeah. Did you wind up going through different ideas and saying, "No, this isn't going to work. Start over again"?
I don't think so. I think, I'm pretty sure that what ended up happening was what I went to first. But of course, I mean, and this is not to toot my own horn. I've been telling stories for a while, and I feel like I've finally gotten to the point where I've put in my 10,000 hours, which for any of you out there who are aspiring writers in any capacity, it's worth working towards, because it's a miraculous moment when all of a sudden writing becomes easy. And much like getting older, you're able to play things all the way out to the end in your mind. And so as I was going through like the various iterations of like, could it be this person? Could it be that person? Before even committing anything to my storyboard, I was able to kind of play it through and see how that would work, or if that would be interesting or the most, compelling thing. So I think, yeah, once I felt like I had found the most compelling killer and MO for this story for me, I pretty much just went with it.
All right, then I want to talk about the elephant in the room, because as I mentioned, I read to the end.
Oh, that elephant, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. The ending elephant. Yeah.
Okay.
This ending I thought was really well done. It was smart. It wasn't a curveball for the sake of a curveball. And it's the kind of thing where, if I think back to previous events, I think, you know what? That makes sense. I like that.
Oh, good. That makes me so happy. You have no idea.
Yeah.
I I was really hoping that the readers would not get ahead of the story. But I was also really hoping that, like anyone who crafts these mysteries, you don't want people to be following along the entire time and like waiting month after month for these issues to come out and then get to the end and be like, that sucks. So I'm so happy that you enjoyed the ending and that it did what it needed to do for you. That's yeah, it's just fuel for my writer fire. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Given that you have worked on other shows, you mentioned Criminal Minds, and you also worked on a Queen of the South too, both in the realm of like murder mysteries, thrillers. Do you feel like this gave you a good like foundation to do like other stories like Jill and the Killers?
I would say Queen of the South, maybe not, in that the tone was so wildly different. Queen of the South is a very interesting show in that it's obviously action, a lot of action. There's a lot of conspiracy. It's heavy on the soap, and it's kind of a romance at the same time. So, but all of that, there wasn't a lot of room in Queen of the South for levity. Every once in a while, we threw a joke in, but with Jill and the Killers, over the years, I've really fallen in love with the horror comedy genre, and I love it because comedy is inherent in life. The higher the stakes get, I find the more humans just act in funny ways when the stakes are high. It's like they do things that don't make sense. The situations you find yourselves in are ridiculous. They're big, and it's just perfect room for jokes and real life comedy. And also, I find that if I am laughing, it's much easier to scare me because I am not expecting it. I was really, really excited to try on that outfit, I guess I would say, because I have never written anything in that vein before. So yeah, Criminal Minds Beyond Borders was definitely helpful in terms of crafting a crime. Obviously, that show is like as dark can be. But I feel like as far as the tone is concerned, really what I found inspiration in are the films of my youth, actually. And again, I'm like dating myself. I hate saying stuff like that. But Stand By Me was one of my favorite movies growing up. I loved Goonies. I loved Monster Squad. The Scream movies were fantastic. And obviously Scream is like just a pitch perfect in terms of that, mesh of comedy and horror and catching you unawares when you're laughing and kind of, letting the reader in on or the watcher in on the story, the audience. So I would say that in terms of inspiration, the films that I loved as a kid growing up were probably more influential than the shows that I've worked on, at least in terms of Jill and the Killers.
Cool, cool.
So I love the subscription box idea, and I wanted to circle back to that real quick for a moment. Could we talk? You had said that it was really simple and easy for you to just kind of how that idea just popped and came to be. Was there ever a point during the process where you were like maybe questioning, should you be going through with this as a process, or wanted to change the subscription box vehicle as it were?
Well, it's a really interesting question, actually, because, as you guys know from having read it, the subscription box of it all falls out pretty quickly. Right. So that it's really just kind of the hook. And I never thought to change that necessarily, but I did. The marketing for the book relied very heavily on that idea that these girls get a subscription box that ends up not being a subscription box at all, but clues to a real life crime. And so there was a lot of back and forth early on about, well, let's not mislead the readers because I don't want them thinking that there's something magical about this subscription box, right? It's not predictive. It doesn't somehow know their town and know an actual murder. No, it's actually the box that they the box of clues that they get is not part of the game at all. It's a totally separate box. And so I wanted to be very careful about how we were using the hook in the marketing so that, and again, maybe this isn't as big a deal as I made it in my head, but I don't want my readers to distrust me as a writer, because I tell them that the story is going to be one thing and it's something entirely different. So the subscription box of it all, Curtis, kept me up at night sometimes, because I thought, oh God, it's really just a way into the story. I don't want to rely too heavily on it. But again, that was the hook. And, as fun as they are, I try to be careful not to abuse a good hook. And it was a little bit of a dance with this book. But at least in terms of the feedback that I'm getting, people don't seem to mind that it falls out pretty quickly. There was one, I listened to one review where it seemed like the guys who were reviewing it just completely missed the fact that the box that they are, the crime that they are solving is not a game at all, and that the game arrives during issue 1. They missed that. And so they're like, what is it with this? I mean, explain to me how a game can work this way. And I'm just listening to this like, oh my God, guys, it's not a game. But yeah, so no, there was never a moment where I was going to pivot away from the subscription box of it all, because that was, it got people so excited about the book. But I was worried that it was being relied on a bit too heavily at times. But I feel like, Oni's really wonderful. They're never going to put a bunch of stuff out there that the writer's like, so we worked together to finesse the writing so that I felt like we were advertising the hook in the right way, but making sure that the reader also understood that there's no magical realism involved in this story. I do write stories that involve magical realism, but this is not it, because I really wanted people to know what they were getting into.
No, it was simplistic. It hit the nail right on the head. It was just perfect. Also you had worked with Roberta Ingranata on this. So how did that collaboration go?
Well, interestingly, and this was totally random, we had worked together before. She did my covers on Silver City, which was my first solo book with Aftershock. Aftershock. Yes, it's such an interesting. They are like my parents in this industry, because they were the first to publish me. But it's been a rough road for them, and I wish them the best. I also wish them to turn the lights back on and crank out the books of mine that they still have in Hawk. So please, guys, get it going.
Hey, this is John F. Mers, author, actor, and owner of 1021 Studios, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout.
For all of you at home listening, I was telling these guys before we got on, I have had a hell of a Mercury retrograde, and make fun of that any way you want. But because I make fun of myself, but my dog has been in and out of the hospital all week. She's going to be fine, but I'm in some like weird nebulous region in my brain where I'm like between waking and dreaming constantly, because I'm not getting any sleep. So I'm doing my best for you guys. Hopefully I'm coherent. But to Roberta, she's amazing. And what happened with Oni, which is rare for me, was that I was put in direct contact with her. A lot of the books that I've done, the publisher or my editor kind of, serves as a go-between between me and my artist, which I don't love, but a lot of times it's kind of necessary, because I worked with a lot of Italian artists. A lot of them don't speak English. So everything ends up getting translated. And of course, some things get lost in translation. But another great thing about Oni is that they have you work with your artist directly. And so Roberta and I formed this incredible rapport. She's also a mother. So we, a working mother, a very hardworking mother. We both are. And so, we really understood one another on that level and supported one another, working our way through this book. She takes notes like a dream. Nothing is ever too much for her. I mean, there were like little things that my editor and I were finding along the way. And, even in the final hour, it was like, oh my God, because when you're dealing with a murder mystery, every little thing matters so much. And if there was like there was one, am I going to give something away? There was like a character blowing a bubble when they had to beat chewing something instead. Like it were things that were that small that we had to go in and fix. And, and she was just amazing about all of it. And what's so great about working with someone like Roberta, there are so many incredibly talented comic book artists out there. Don't get me wrong. But, as when you're writing for teenagers, especially this specific group of teenagers, and Jill in particular, they don't always say what they mean. In fact, most of the time, they're trying to mask their emotions or cover them. They're saying the opposite of what they mean half the time. And my older daughter is not a teenager yet, but she's close enough that a lot of the same stuff is happening with her, and her face is telling me one thing, and her mouth is telling me another. And I don't draw, so I could not facilitate any of this. But if you don't have an artist who is able to communicate those types of nuanced emotions and facial expressions, then you're kind of stuck writing a lot of on the nose dialogue so that your readers can understand the emotional trajectory. But with Roberta, it was just so wonderful that and I look at some of these panels of Jill like mouthing off, but her face is just drawn and tortured. And I'm like, yes, like that's it. So having Roberta on this book enabled me to write the characters the way I wanted to, in the most honest way. And we're actually working together again right now on another book. So yeah, we're a little bit of a dream team. And Nia, who did the colors, she's going to be working with us again too. So yeah, it's been a really beautiful partnership, and I'm so lucky to have found her. And now I need to get out to Italy. She keeps sending me pictures of her beautiful house and her pool, and it's like the Italian countryside, and saying, please come so we can just eat good food like every day and relax in the sunshine. So hopefully I will be getting out to actually visit her at some point soon.
Well, I just want to say that the art team absolutely killed it, and that's not a pun.
Yeah,
they just nailed it. When I was reading the first issue, I was like, this art's amazing. This is really good because just absolutely fantastic work. And I want to check out more of like Roberta's work, because like seeing the other titles she's worked on, like Witchblade, Doctor Who, Robin Hood, Van Helsing. It's like, I want to find these things because this is some really, really good stuff. Was there
she's a powerhouse.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Was there a particular scene that she drew that you thought, this is why I'm working with you? Oh, please share.
Yep. The fight between Jill and her dad.
Oh yes.
Right before she goes in and slams the bedroom door. That scene just blew me away. And then she's great at arguments. And then there's another great argument between Jill and Clyde at the pool. And I mean, it was a powerful moment in the writing, but between Roberta's art and the lettering, I mean, the scene just jumps off the page. So those are the two of the scenes that come to mind right away. But there's also smaller, quieter scenes. Like I think it's the end of book 2, when we're looking through the lens of a camera on the tombstones, and we're losing focus and gaining focus and losing. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That scenes like that. As a writer, I write them, and I feel a little guilty sometimes, because I know what would happen if it were a film camera, right? I know what it would look like on film or TV, and I think, oh my God, how are they going to draw this? And then I think, okay, they'll figure it out. That's their job. That's a Roberta problem. But yeah, so when I saw what she had done with that, I thought, oh, phew, that's perfect. That's beautiful. That's exactly what this scene needed to be. So that was another, smaller, quieter series of panels that I was very, very impressed and happy with. And then the last one I'll mention, the other scene that made me laugh and so happy. These fabulous accidents happen when you are working with someone who's not American. And in one of the scenes we had written, this guy goes to a mailbox. I don't know, Curtis and Max, if you guys noticed this, but when they follow the gentleman who runs the town store to the mailbox place, the mailbox place has a label on the outside. It says, Mailboxes, Convenience Store, Bar and Grill. And at first I saw that, I said,
I didn't catch that.
No, it is
Whoops.
absurd. Yes, a mailbox is convenience store, bar, and grill. But of course, Roberta's Italian. She doesn't know. She's just trying to, make this look like an American mailbox store. And my first instinct, my editor brain went, oh God, we got to fix that. And then my artist brain was like, no, that is brilliant. We're talking about Arizona right here. And don't get me started on Arizona and everything that's been going on in the news, but there is some weird shit in Arizona. And this could totally be a thing. I don't know if you guys have ever traveled in the middle of the country, but you will find these gas stations that are like everything. It's the main store in the town. It is a FedEx. It is a grocery store. It's everything in one little spot, and they sell you gas and lottery tickets.
Yep. I stopped at one once.
Sweatshirts and it's like the mega Walmarts and stuff of.
I stopped at one once that actually had like showers for the truckers.
For the truckers, yeah. Yeah, that is not a place where any person concerned with their welfare should ever be. Is a shower at a truck stop.
Yep. Hey, sometimes, port in a storm, I guess, you got to do what you got to do, but I'll pass on that one. Thank you very much. Exactly.
I don't know if I can make it out of there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That could be the next murder mystery. You're right. Is Max goes into a trucker shower and he's never seen or heard from again.
Well, that's another thing I don't know if you noticed, but during the flashback scene where Jill's mom runs out of the ice cream shop, chasing after the guy who's abducted that kid, there's somebody watching her. And she realizes that person's watching her. Did you notice?
I didn't. Oh my God. I can read this thing again now.
It's a long haul trucker. And if you know anything about serial killers these days, most of them are long haul truckers.
Yep. So
that's a little clue for again, I'm really, really hoping that this book does well enough that, Oni calls me and says, okay, Olivia, we're going to do another arc.
I will take a quick second and actually give a quick shout out to AWA. They're an amazing comics company. And if you want to read more about long haul trucker serial killers, check out Devil's Highway, because that's what it's about.
I love AWA. They're awesome.
They are fantastic. We got to mention this because their whole thing is on long haul trucker serial killers.
Well, it is very much a thing. It's because it's so easy for them. They pick up a prostitute in one state and drop their body in the next. And because for whatever reason, I can't understand, our legal system is so antiquated that you can't really track crimes very well state to state. They get away with it really easily. And it's heartbreaking. And that's actually part of the story of, should I spoil? Can I do a book 3 spoiler?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
That's kind of what we find out happened to Clyde's sister. Yes. Is that she was a prostitute that was picked up and murdered. And that's where, you guys have read the ending. I won't say anything about who the killer is, but this first arc, I wanted to make it scary, and I wanted to make it, I wanted the crime to be something that you could follow and make sense of, but I also I wanted to be fun. But I also, these types of crimes obviously are real. And, even though we are dealing with male victims in this first arc, the majority of victims, I'm not going to say the majority of victims of violence in general, but the majority of victims of this specific type of violence are women, and usually young women, and usually marginalized young women. And so it was important to me, even in the context of this, horror comedy, to make note of that, and to also let the readers know that, should the series continue, we are going to be getting into some more quote unquote real grounded crimes. And the mystery of Clyde's sister is definitely something that would absorb another arc, and one that I really look forward to, because it was funny, as my daughter and my stepson were reading the books, they were suspicious of Clyde. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I can see that though. I can see that because Clyde kind of comes out of nowhere. Quickly befriends the group. She seems a very traveled person. She seems very.
And I definitely cast suspicion on her.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that's what I was doing that. Whoops. In that capacity.
Clyde.
Okay, but But that was fun to hear that they were thinking of that direction. And then again, once you've read book 3, to if you were suspecting her, to then go, oh, that's what's going on with her. I hope that was a fun revelation.
Enjoying the podcast? Get even more of the content you love from artists around the world on Citywide Bites. Experience the show live on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, only on Instagram. With our interactive short-form interview series, you can ask your questions and be a part of the action. Hosted by Max Bowen.
Okay, you've mentioned first arc a few times here, so I gotta ask, are we looking at a sequel series?
I am dying for one. I'm very hopeful to be able to tell. Again, none of this has been greenlit yet, but Oni is well aware that I want to do another one. I'm not shy about the things that I want to do, but right now I'm feeling fairly good about it because there's a big push to get Jill optioned. So fingers crossed that she will have potentially a life in probably TV development. I see this more as probably being a television show than a feature. And so certainly if we get an option, whether or not the show is made, I think that would bode well for another arc. And then the other thing that's happening, and I have to check up on this, but it seems like everything has been moving forward, is that there might be a tabletop game of Jill and the Killers. Yeah. So a murder mystery tabletop game.
Oh, I'm definitely buying one. I'm definitely getting one. Hell yeah.
I was so excited when I heard that I nearly fell out of my chair. And this is all credit to Hunter, who's really killing it out there for me and for Jill. So yeah, fingers crossed for those things. And if those things happen, and maybe even if they don't within a certain amount of time, if the book does well enough, and again, we still have the release of the trade paperback, which, is always its own entity in terms of the, publishing world and how these books do. Hopefully I'll get to tell another arc because, as you can probably see, there's, we have the individual arc of this particular crime, which we solve, but Jill's mom, we still have no idea what happened to her. And I very much intend, if given the opportunity, to let everyone know. So we have to get closer to her. And again, we've also introduced the mystery involving Clyde's sister, which I would also love to address. So, I could tell these stories for a very long time, but I at least have 2 big, solid more arcs in me right now.
I love it. All right, let's talk let's talk about Jill's mom.
Yeah.
How does her disappearance shape her daughter? How does her going missing shape her, especially as she winds up investigating her own crimes?
Yeah, that's and by her own crimes, what Max is referring to, if you guys haven't read the series yet, is that her mother was a detective, and what we discover is that the box that Jill got was actually intended for her mom. So she is not solving a crime that her mother committed, but a crime that her mother was working on solving. So yeah, so Jill's mom, for those of you who haven't read it, her patrol car was found empty at the bottom of Crater Lake, and she has not been seen. And Jill's father is acting he's acting as though she's just missing. Something's happened to her. She's been taken or she was scared away. He's got this massive, Beautiful Mind crime board in his kitchen that is dedicated to finding her. The detectives that the policemen and the officers that she worked with at the station are very much, they're idiots, but they're really trying to find her. They were very enamored with their lead detective, and everything's been a mess for them since. But as far as Jill is concerned, her mother's disappearance turned her entire life upside down, obviously. This happened a year prior to the book starting, and her father became very paranoid and kind of kept her locked up for a year. She did not go back to school because, again, her father was convinced that someone had, taken her, the mother, and thought maybe the family was under threat. And Jill, over the course of that year, got to the point where, because her mother did not return, to protect herself from the reality that her mother could still be alive out there and not come back, has convinced herself that her mother's dead. It's what she needs to do to protect herself and to move on. Because, for her, if her mother's still out there, then why hasn't she come back? And if her mother's still out there, then she should be out looking for her. But really, Jill is so powerless in this situation that the only way that she can see to move forward is, okay, my mom is dead. Let's everyone stop talking about this. I just want my life to go back to normal. And Clyde calls her out on this because Jill is very much trying to bypass grief. For anyone that's lost anyone, you know that grief is incredibly painful and it takes forever. And again, even when you think it's gone, it pops up again, and there you are, stuck in these feelings, and it's very, very difficult. And so Jill was always the kind of person that masked her negative feelings with humor and tried to be the life of the party. And she really is, she's very concerned with how the outside world perceives her, especially now that she's in this fragile state. So again, Jill has convinced herself that her mom's dead. And so throughout the book, she's haunted by this. So she tries to go back to the swim team that she was on before, but she's seeing her mother's patrol car in the bottom of the pool. She becomes incredibly afraid of water, which, if you know anything about story structure, we definitely pay off at the end. It's like, Indiana Jones being afraid of snakes. Well, that's Chekhov's gun. And if there's a gun on stage, it's going to go off at some point. So, she is going to have to overcome that fear in these books. But her mother's disappearance haunts her, and where she, in terms of her arc, and this isn't spoiling anything in terms of the mystery, but she eventually, by the end of this arc, does come to terms with the fact that her mother could very well be missing. Her mother might not be dead at all, and she has to have hope, and she has to, work with her dad on this quest to find her, because, God, it can't hurt to try, but it can hurt to give up. So...
Exactly. All right. Well, folks, we are coming down to the end of this conversation. Got a couple more questions, though. For this particular comic series, is there a particular scene that for you was like, yes, this is like the scene. This is like the best part of the book?
Oh my gosh, the best part. Well, again, I mean, I know I mentioned this before, but the argument that happens between Jill and Clyde, where Clyde calls Jill out on trying to bypass grief, that... Again, with comic books, you're not an island. So even you can feel like you pulled the scene off perfectly in the writing, but then, the art might not reflect what you thought you were doing. And sometimes you'll give a ton of notes and it just ends up making everything worse. And then sometimes, your artist brings out something in the book that you didn't even think was pivotal. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, and that's the best scene. But in terms of that particular scene in book 3 by the pool, I thought it was a kind of a beautiful confluence of writing and art that really drew that out. Another scene that I love the way it worked out for several reasons is... and it's just a really simple scene. It's O'Brien cleaning out the chimney and getting attacked by all those huntsman spiders.
Yeah, no. Nope. Nope.
But I loved it because that scene only came about... O'Brien had a different name when I first pitched the series. And then I ended up meeting my current partner, who I love to pieces. And when I first started writing the book, I thought, okay, well, you know what? I think I want to base this character on you. So his name is Chris O'Brien. So that's how the character became O'Brien. And he's terrified of spiders. And so that was how that scene came to be, was, based on my actual partner's fear. And I got his mother to send me pictures of him when he was in high school. And I sent those pictures to Roberta. And so that is also his likeness. And the character, he has a beard now, and of course he didn't then. But yes, that's my O'Brien. I gave him to Cher. She can have him on loan. So so that's a little Easter egg for folks.
Oh my God!
And then the other scene that I really loved, and again, there's so much of this book that I feel like ended up working out so well, but the first flashback with Jill and her mom, where we see them in the walkie-talkie store, I loved that because what Roberta was able to do, again, it was more than what I had written, but you can feel the closeness of these two. on the page, in the artwork. And I feel like you just look at that image and you understand what Jill lost and why she's suffering so much. And again, that's why I don't draw. That's why you hire the best. Because
Exactly.
they make you look good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the big question before we wrap this whole thing up is what's next?
What's next? Okay.
Yes.
The next thing that I have coming out is Fate, the Winx Saga Dark Destiny, and that's coming out this summer in July. So I was very, very lucky to be contacted by my now fabulous friends over at Maverick, which is under the Mad Cave umbrella. And they said, hey, we need someone to write these Fate, the Winx Saga books. Do you know anything about this? And I said, no. But then I watched the show and I was like, I'm doing this. So it was very, very cool. I actually, as someone who writes for television also, I got to continue the story of the television show, which was canceled after season 2, in any way that I wanted. So, I mean, imagine being able to like watch a really fun show and then at the end of it be like, okay, whatever you want to have happen, do it for season 3 and we'll turn it into a graphic novel. So that's what's coming out this summer. And for people who are, fans of Winx, it is a continuation of the story, but also we have, I should say, I have given enough of a foundation in the first part of the book that even if you haven't seen the show, you can still, pick this up and know what's going on. So there's going to be 2 volumes of that. One is coming out this summer and the next should be coming out next year. So that I'm very excited about. I also just found out, well, I don't know if I can name it yet because it hasn't been publicly announced, but I have an adult book that I can describe that's coming out with Mad Cave. And the first issue is going to be out in January of 2025. I was just given my publication date. And that is about a not so distant future where, in order to control the population, New York City has designated random subway trains, like maybe 1 out of every 100,000, to be kill trains, where everyone on the train gets slaughtered by the time it gets to the end of the line. This is based on a dream that I had, by the way. And it follows this single mom who is under so much pressure that she has a mental breakdown just as she realizes that she is on one of these kill trains and decides that she's not going down without a fight. And I describe it to people as Everything Everywhere All at Once meets Squid Game on a subway train. It is the most violent thing I have ever written in my life, but it is also by far the most personal. I'll just be frank, I'm an artist, I can get away with it. I was in a lot of pain when I was outlining this book, and I was like, I am so sick of feeling this way and feeling like I have to carry it myself. I'm just going to put everything into this book, everything I'm mad about, everything I'm suffering for, and fuck everybody. And it was so much fun. I was also incredibly jet lagged. I was actually on the train from London to Paris and back again when I outlined this, and I sent it in to my amazing editor, and I was like, I don't know if this makes any sense, but I think that this is the best thing that I've ever written. And they were like, okay, yep, done deal. Let's get you a contract. And I was like, holy crap. So yeah, that's my little tease for that book. And that will be coming out in January. And then I have an amazing project in the works with humanoids, and I'm working with Jake Thomas on that, who's just like the best person ever. And that is, it's a throwback 90s monster story about a 14-year-old girl who realizes that her mother, who's a Wall Street trader, turns into a monster at night and is killing her competition, and has to figure out why this happened and how to stop it. And it's, again, the whole thing is in the 90s, and I grew up in New York City in the 90s, so that was really fun to write. I just started embarking on my first rom-com, which is going to be a YA rom-com also with Maverick. Very excited about that. And I have 2 books with Aftershock, one of which was announced, Bram Stoker Monster Hunter, and another horror that will hopefully, once they're able to, sort out everything that's going on with the company, hopefully they still make it out the door. So yeah, a lot of books coming up, and I have a lot of companies to pitch to. So yeah, I'm in this business to stay. I have completely fallen in love with comics, and comic book people. And I don't care what happens to me in the rest of my career. Someone could pay me millions and millions to make a TV show, and hopefully they do one day, but I will always be writing comics.
Nice. And definitely count me in for the Kill Train series. I want to read that one.
I was just going to say, like, we need to have her back just for that.
Yes, yes.
I gotta see that.
I have to check that one out. All right.
I just got the colors for issue 1, and I was like, yeah. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Nice.
Good, really good art on this one too. I mean, I'm so lucky. I'm the luckiest creator in this town that I get to work with artists that I get to work with. They are phenomenal, and I'm in awe of them.
I'll bet.
And I totally understand why they make twice as much as I do.
Well, that could be a subject for the next interview, because this one, unfortunately, guys, we've come to the end. I don't want to come to the end, but
no.
But the story will go on, of course, folks. April 17th, the final issue of Jill and the Killers drops. Be at your favorite comic shop. If they don't have it, order a copy. They can do that stuff. If you haven't been reading this series, guys, you pick this one up. Oni Press. Get it all. It's fantastic stuff. Trade will be coming out later on this year. And Olivia,
yes, November, by the way.
November, yes,
November.
yes. So if you like trades, there will be a trade later on this year in November. But if you want to read the story, you know to get it right now. Olivia,
and then read it again.
Yes, read it again. I'll be reading it again. Actually, I'll probably be like reading it during the editing process, because I got to find the things I missed before. Olivia, this has been absolutely wonderful. It's been great talking to you. Thank you so much. And of course, before we go, though, where do folks go to learn more about you and check out all the works?
At Olivia C. Briggs on Instagram is the best place to find me. And for anyone who wants to give me feedback on the books, I always check my messages, even the ones that end up in that little, requests folder. I check them all. So get in touch, ask me any questions you have, especially, aspiring writers. I'm all yours to answer any of your questions. Hit me up.
Excellent. All right. Well, folks, thank you once again for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Curtis, thank you again for joining, buddy. Always great to have you on this show.
Always good to be here.
All right. And Olivia, thanks again. Wonderful chat.
Thank you.
Appreciate this. We will see you all next time.
Bye.
And with that, we bring this episode to a close. Thanks for listening, and if you haven't already, check us out on Facebook under Citywide Blackout, and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. You can catch this and all your favorite episodes on your favorite podcast platform, and new episodes are added every week, as well as on Boston Free Radio every Saturday at 10 p.m. You get at me at citywidemax@yahoo.com if you want to suggest a guest, submit your music, or just drop us a line. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.